Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so the last time, कोहली जी, इको हो रहा है क्या? So ma'am was saying that we should finish the IR wala thing first, so that IR is finished in one continuity. So if you have done it in pol science, I have nothing new to offer on IR. Okay, so you're not done, right? Okay, good. So what we're going to discuss today is we're going to cover two countries: India, Nepal, India, Bhutan. Huh. Voice is echo. Clear नहीं आ रहा है. So we have to talk India, Nepal, and India, Bhutan. Now, when we talk from an examination point of view, is it clear now? No? Not clear? Clear? Hai? Is it clear on the back? You can either shift here and there. Okay. That's it. Is it audible? Okay. So, see, from your examination point of view, see, GSIR is very simple. GSIR, there's absolutely no complication. It's one of the easiest things to do, provided you just stick to what is required for the exam. Do not get into meta-narratives or deciding Indian foreign policy, or what should be your view on Indian foreign policy. How will you drive India's policy towards Bhutan or Nepal? That is not your task. Your task is only to know the broader narrative and the broader issues in every relationship. See, from your examination point of view in GS, what kind of questions they ask almost on every country. Firstly, South Asia is a major focus. In your exam, if you look in your syllabus, from your GS perspective, South Asia is the major focus. And almost every year, one or the other country, primarily from South Asia's perspective, is something which is asked in your mains examination. Almost every year. Either 1 year they'll pick on Bangladesh, next year on Nepal, next year on Bhutan, something of this sort. They keep rotating. Normally, you'll get some 4 to 5 questions in your mains examination from IR in paper 2. Okay. And some 4 to 5 questions in IR from paper 2, that is what you'll get. Out of these 4 to 5 questions, at least roughly 2 questions will be from South Asia, at least. It can be even more than this. It can be even 3 or 4 also. Okay. And most questions in South Asia, when they come, there is always and often, directly or indirectly, a China angle. So normally what I've seen is there are 2 questions from South Asia, roughly. There's at least 1 question from China, one or the other thing about China. And then there can be one or a couple of more things about either Southeast Asia or West Asia, and that always and often involves a US angle to it as well. So USA and a Russia angle to it, if that's there. Now these are the broader things from your examination point of view, and what you need to focus from your GS point of view is current issues, their significance, India's position on these issues. Okay, that is what is important. often see historical narrative is they don't ask you many questions on history. So they'll not ask you a question like this, that discuss the evolution of India-Nepal relationship or discuss the evolution of India-Bhutan relationship. They don't ask you questions like this. The kind of question they'll ask you is that in the context of increasing Chinese presence in Nepal, discuss the implications for India-Nepal relationship. Or they'll ask you a question like this, that in the recent past, India-Nepal relationship has witnessed a number of ups and downs. Discuss. So they'll ask you specific questions, okay? Or for example, they'll ask you questions like this: India-Nepal hydropower cooperation has not realized its potential till now. Comment. So in the context, GS questions are always very specific. They'll not give you one answer to write on India-Nepal relationship. On a 12-marker question, you just have 250 words. What can you write? In the sense that 250 words is too less to write a framework on India-Nepal relationship. They'll be asking specific questions. So let me start with Nepal, and then we'll discuss Bhutan, okay? And that will give you a sense. Now, from your dictation point of view, you can write with me, that's broadly there, and I'll get a handout distributed for you, okay, which will have the other broader points on almost all countries. That's more than enough, okay. Now, when we talk about India-Nepal, I'll give you a brief historical background, but nobody is going to ask you that in the exam. But this is just to give you the broader understanding. Okay, that's important. To understand the current issues, it's good to have some broader historical background. But apart from this historical background, the major issues you must know in India-Nepal relationship. Now, one of the major issues is the persistent issue of the Madhesi question, which is also partly a constitutional issue. The other major issue, apart from this, is the India-Nepal Friendship Treaty. Is there a case for revision? India-Nepal Friendship Treaty, 1950. Is there a case for a revision of this treaty? Then, the third major issue in India, in the India-Nepal relationship, is the issue of hydropower cooperation, its potential and challenges, and recent developments. And the last one is about the China factor. That's it. Okay. These are the broader four things. Now, the recent development, often we think that IR is very current based. It's actually not very current based. What develops is which issue is in discussion in the year that you're writing the mains examination determines the likelihood of which area can be asked as a question directly. Okay. So if India-Nepal has been in a lot of discussion in the past year, then you can definitely expect a question on India-Nepal. Or if India-Bhutan has been, if the Doklam question has been in discussion, then India-Bhutan. So that's the thing. Relevance of the topic from your exam point of view may vary from year to year based on which topic is under discussion. Now, let's start with India-Nepal's historical background. Now, when we talk about India-Nepal's historical background, one of the things is, see, in international relations, One factor alone never drives a relationship. One factor alone neither determines the foreign policy of a state nor does it drive the relationship. Often there are certain key determinants of any foreign policy, and that does not depend on the oratory skills of the leader. Determinant of foreign policy is not how strong the leader talks. That's not the determinant of foreign policy. Hu Jintao doesn't talk. Xi Jinping doesn't talk. They don't talk much at all. But China still has a very, has a very strong foreign policy in terms of pushing towards its objectives. So when we talk about key determinants of foreign policy, we often say one of the major underlying determinants of foreign policy, ये सिर्फ understanding के लिए बता रहा हूँ मैं आपको, so that you keep this in mind whenever you look at any country relationship. First is, sir, economic development. You can never have a foreign policy. You can never have, a foreign policy which can meet its objectives unless you have a strong economic development. Because in international relations, we say that military strength continues to be a major determinant of foreign, a major determinant of how successful or unsuccessful is going to be one's foreign policy. I'm not saying that one has to use the army all the time to achieve their objectives, but military strength can be important either for offensive purposes or defensive or both. It's not that every objective in India-China relationship will be achieved through military measures. And military measures can be both defensive and offensive. But more importantly, a state is never strong in international relations without a strong military. There is no state which has a major weight in international relations unless it has a strong military. There is no such state, sir. All the most heavily or the major rule shapers in international relations are states which have a strong army. And maintaining a strong army requires a strong economy. So unless you have a growing economy, it's not a coincidence that US is the world's biggest economy, is also the world's biggest military power, is also the biggest rule shaper in international relations. So a strong economic development is necessary for a strong military development, and military strength often is a major determinant of foreign policy. Another major determinant of foreign policy is domestic politics, sir. In the sense that domestic politics always continues to heavily influence the position a country takes on the international arena. Okay. And vice versa, in the sense that, for example, if say India is discussing a question with China, say on the border question, China says, you give us certain territories and we'll give you certain territories and we can come to a settlement. Now, for this to happen, any Indian leader, whoever it is, needs to enjoy what domestic support over this issue. Suppose Indian leader is saying, okay, we'll give away Aksai Chin to China. Then, in that condition, the Indian leader must have that much domestic support that, he is not afraid of losing his support base within the domestic politics of India. It never happens that a leader can completely ignore the domestic implications of any foreign policy decision to go ahead at the international level. Leaders often keep in mind that how does any decision taken at the international level strengthen or weaken their domestic position. That is always a key determinant of foreign policy. Another key determinant of foreign policy is what? Geography. So whether it is the Himalayas or whether it is the Indian Ocean, Himalayas is something which keep Nepal and Bhutan as what? Landlocked not just landlocked. Landlocked may it keeps them heavily dependent for transit on whom? On India. Or there are numerous examples. Sir, Afghanistan, India's Afghanistan policy, or India's depth in Afghanistan, or India's Afghan policy gets heavily limited because of lack of connectivity. So, or you see India's, the Andaman and Nicobar Island, which is very close to the Malacca Strait, which is a key trade route. And that gives India a naval advantage in the Indian Ocean region, right? So that's there. Apart from these four factors, there is also definitely one another factor, and that is what? Leadership, sir, Modi ji. Leadership also plays a role. Leadership can also influence the direction of foreign policy, in the sense that leadership can also influence the role of direction or role and direction of the foreign policy. But leadership cannot compensate. Leadership cannot overcome geography. Leadership cannot overcome geography. However strong a leader may come in Nepal or a Bhutan, they cannot overcome the constraints imposed by geography with ease. Or for that matter, a strong leader in Maldives cannot militarily challenge India. Leadership plays a role, but leadership का role बहुत बाद में आता है, पहले ये सारी चीजें हैं. Economic development, military strength. You have a very strong leader who speaks amazingly well, but India's economy is in shambles. It is militarily underprepared. Then it really doesn't matter how strong your leader is. And so in that context, these 3 or 4 things are there. Apart from that, leadership can also play a role. Now, what is the role played by leadership, sir? For example, Nehru is often associated with a specific foreign policy initiative, that is non-alignment, right? Nehru is often associated with a specific foreign policy leadership initiative, and that is non-alignment. Indira Gandhi was often associated with the strong decision to militarily intervene where? In the 1971 war with Pakistan. Or I.K. Gujral with an emphasis on a strong focus on neighborhood, with the need urging for a strong focus on neighborhood. Or Mr. Vajpayee with a strong focus on closing of India-US relationship. Okay, that's there. Or Mr. Manmohan Singh taking forward the India-US closing of relationship further with the civil nuclear deal of 2008, or Prime Minister Modi with a strong focus that he has shown on South Asia, Africa, and focus on diaspora. So do you see that yes, leadership plays a important role as well, because it can decide which areas must receive the urgent focus. But at the same point of time, it cannot overcome, you know, one thing. And you should understand that one factor alone doesn't determine foreign policy. It's always a multitude of factors coming together. One last factor, if one wants to add, is international environment. Okay, international environment in the sense that no country, international environment in the sense that no country, for example, if India and whatever is the prevailing international climate often decides or often, has an influence on the options any state has in foreign policy. For example, if US-Iran tensions are rising, that has a clear influence on Indian foreign policy, because India may have certain goals to pursue with US also and certain goals to pursue with Iran also. But if US-Iran tensions rise, US imposes financial sanctions on Iran, then it may be very difficult for India to navigate between US and Iran. This is for current I'm saying. Or if you look at the Cold War era, the US-Soviet tensions and the US-Soviet tensions became a heavy influence because in the sense that US-Soviet tensions became a heavy influence because India did not want to, be seen as lobbying with the one or falling into any one group against the other. So India was conscious and well aware that too much closeness to US may be seen, may antagonize whom? Soviet Union. Or too much closeness to Soviet Union may lead to a certain degree of hostility in India-US relationship. So international environment often influences and kind of puts the limitation on the options that any country has in terms of foreign policy decisions. Okay. So one last factor if one was to add, that could be international environment as well. The international environment often provides a limitation on the options available with a state in the foreign policy arena. So these are the 5 or 6 major things. इन चीजों का हमेशा ध्यान में रखिए and then try to understand any country's relation. Whatever any leader says holds no relevance. देखिए, whatever any leader says holds no relevance in the arena of foreign policy unless it is in sync with these factors. If it is out of sync, अभी कल को मलेशिया का, if tomorrow Maldivian Prime Minister says कि देख लेंगे इंडिया तुम्हें, it may, however strong a orator he may be, it really doesn't matter. Okay. So one thing is that unless all other, just, often क्योंकि आप लोगों के साथ क्या होता है कि आपसे कुछ भी बोलता है that Indian Prime Minister said that or the Pakistani Prime Minister said that. Whatever one individual or the Chinese premier said that, whatever they say has to be seen in the context of this light. If it doesn't fit, it's just an empty rhetoric. And every leader does empty rhetoric from time to time. So just because a country's leader is saying something doesn't mean that that is what is going to happen. Underlying factors are always driving foreign policy. Leadership is only one of them. Now let's start with India, Nepal. Now the India-Nepal relationship itself will give you a good example of how everything is important and not just what leaders say. And in this context, it is the Nepali leaders who say a lot, often uselessly, which is not often in sync with other factors. Now, when we talk about the historical background of India-Nepal relationship, one of the things to know is that geography and international environment had a heavy influence on India-Nepal relationship. Geography, international environment, to begin with, had a heavy influence. Firstly, geography and international environment. Which international environment are we talking about? Is firstly, the rise of China, the rise of communist China in 1949, sorry. Now China rose, in China we'll see, the Chinese Communist Party came to power in 1949. And it is at this point of time, the Chinese premier was Mao Zedong. And Mao Zedong gave what was called as the One China policy. He said that he gave the One China policy, and under One China policy he said that okay, now if you just historically look at China, China had always been ruled by a central empire. China was never colonized by any European country. China was never anybody's colony, though many European powers were present in China. And in China, what China claimed as its territories like Tibet, territories like Xinjiang, etc., had been partly autonomous at different points of time in history. Okay. Now, to that extent, Mao Zedong gave the One China policy and said that all of these territories, which territories? Xinjiang. देखिए, I just expect you one thing, to see maps. आधा तो IR is all about maps only. If you know the map, okay, you'll know. Xinjiang is the northwest portion of China, adjoining Central Asian countries. Also, so Xinjiang is the northwest portion of China, adjoining the Central Asian countries. And in the south is what? Tibet. Okay. In the southwest is Tibet, in the northwest is Xinjiang. Okay. So, and this was historically an autonomous region, or Tibet, which was another region in the south, right? Or Taiwan, which was what? Taiwan or Formosa, which is the island, you know, just across what? Mainland China. So, Xinjiang, Tibet, Taiwan, all were considered to be an integral part of China under the One China policy. Now, that though Mao always said, in 1949 itself Mao said this. Okay. Now, that is there. However, and as a result of this Mao's One China policy, you see that the CCP troops started entering Tibet. When? 1949-1950 onwards. The CCP's troops started entering Tibet. And as they're doing this, who's getting concerned? This evoked concerns where? In India. Why? Because Tibet was often an autonomous region which was a buffer region between India and China. But not just India. Nepal, Bhutan, all of these kingdom states were also getting concerned, in the sense that Mao had also made a statement. Why are they getting concerned? Because as China consolidates its hold over Tibet, etc., this is a matter of concern for India as well as for these states, because especially Nepal and Bhutan are what? Militarily and economically weak. And irrespective of whatever China may say, अरे we are good friends, we are Himalayan neighbors, etc. बोलने से कुछ नहीं होता. International relations is not based on the trust of two leaders or what leaders say. It is based on other factors. Leadership is only very secondary. And to that extent, because so if even if the Nepal, even if the Chinese leaders would have said that we want very friendly relations with Nepal and Bhutan, whatever. Nepal and Bhutan are very concerned. Why? Because China is expanding into Tibet and might as well as try to expand into its adjoining territories. And on top of that, Mao made a statement that Tibet is the palm and Aksai Chin, Nepal, Sikkim, Bhutan, Arunachal are what? Fingers. Tibet is the palm and these are the 5 fingers. In the sense that a number of them, for example, Tibet has a Buddhist population, Nepal, is its neighbor. Anything that if they wanted to strengthen their control over Tibet, they had to ensure that any kind of supply of arms or insurgency doesn't happen from Tibet's borders with adjoining regions. So one of the things is that Tibet is the palm and Aksai Chin, Nepal, Sikkim, Bhutan, Arunachal are its fingers in the sense that they are an extension of Tibet. For example, they said that Arunachal is South Tibet. Today they say that Arunachal is South Tibet. Arunachal has the second holiest shrine of Buddhism. When Dalai Lama came to India in 1949 escaping from Tibet, he came from the Arunachal region. Similarly, Bhutan has a significant Buddhist population. So Bhutan, Arunachal has certain degree of racial as well as what? Cultural affinity to Tibet. And consolidating, as a measure of consolidating their hold over Tibet, consolidating their hold over the immediate neighbors is also something which is important. Also, Aksai Chin wala angle, ma'am will discuss with you. Ma'am will discuss China already, right? So ma'am would have explained everything about Aksai Chin to you. So that's it. Now it is in this context when this is happening, India, Nepal and Bhutan all are concerned. And that is the time, and Nepal and Bhutan also have another key international factor that is going to influence them, and that is geography. In the sense that firstly they are landlocked, but not just landlocked, they are landlocked with the Himalayan mountain range in the north, right? So it's not just that, it's not just that it is landlocked, it is landlocked with Himalayas on the one side. Why are we emphasizing this? That Himalayas are very high. So geographically accessing the sea from the Indian side of the border is cheaper, is faster than accessing from the Chinese side of the border. Firstly, they'll have to cross the Himalayas. That itself is a huge structural barrier. Secondly, the coast to Nepal distance from China is much larger than the coast to Nepal distance from India. Okay. So in that context, you see that Nepal is landlocked, and landlocked countries always have it tough, because whether that is fuel supply, food supply, trade supply, they will depend on what? Other countries for getting transit rights. That is why there are very few countries in the world which are landlocked, because landlocked matlab there is going to be a huge strain on your foreign policy. How do you remain independent and if you are landlocked, and how do you prevent other countries from heavily influencing or controlling you if you remain landlocked? Okay, that has always been the case world over historically. That's why very few countries are landlocked, and many landlocked countries eventually become what? Are gobbled up by one country or the other. Sir, Sikkim became a part of India. Sir, Jammu and Kashmir, कभी आज़ादी नहीं हो सकता है जम्मू एंड कश्मीर का. उसका रीजन इंडिया नहीं है. उसका रीजन इज द लैंडलॉक्ड नेचर ऑफ जम्मू एंड कश्मीर. China is sitting on one side, Pakistan is sitting on the other side, India is sitting on the other side. They are landlocked. Landlocked countries always have it tough. Central Asian countries, landlocked. And again, landlocked because of which they were always heavily under the influence of Russia during the Cold War era. Okay. So landlocked countries, Afghanistan, sir, koi mai baap hi nahi Afghanistan ka. Okay. It's completely landlocked. It always dependent. That is what gives Pakistan a huge strategic advantage over Afghanistan today. So landlocked countries always find it tough. And Nepal and for Nepal and Bhutan, this is an even bigger problem because sandwiched between two big neighbors, India and China, it has always had a difficult time. And in the 1950s, Nepal and Bhutan moved closer towards India. Nepal moved closer towards India as a result of the Chinese expansionist activities in where? In Tibet in 1950s, right? So Chinese expansionist activities in 1950s. Clear? Now, here in comes the interesting part. So this is what is happening. Okay. But please understand one more thing. देखिए I'm more interested, आप एक चीज समझ जाइए. IR is the easiest thing to do, provided you do not get overly influenced by only one factor. Any relationship, say India-Nepal relationship or God knows India's relationship with any country, will rest on three legs. A security or a political leg. It's like a stool. It's like a stool which has three legs. The other is what? Economics. And the third is what? Culture. Diaspora, people to people. Okay, that's it. Now, when we talk about India-Nepal relationship, you know, the security angle is something that I just told you, right? The China factor to begin with in the 1950s. Another factor which has historically always been an influencer of India-Nepal relationship is what? Culture. Or culture or people to people or diaspora. How is that? In the sense that today 6 to 8 million Nepali citizens do what? Work in India. And this means, sir, what? A huge source of remittances to Nepal. Just like for India, it comes from the Gulf. Okay. Now, just like for India, it comes from the Gulf or from USA, right? That remittances that's one thing. So there's finding a huge source of what? Remittances or employment in India. Secondly, Nepali citizens can even join where? The Indian Army services to hai hai, but even the Indian Army. Except Group A level services, Group B, C, D level services maybe they can join, and they can also join the Indian Army also. For example, the Gorkha regiment is there. Nepali citizens can also buy property in India, and what can they also do? They can also buy property in India, and obviously there is a huge marital link. Huge or large number of marital links between India and Nepal. This is also called the रोटी बेटी का रिश्ता. ये रिश्ता क्या कहलाता है? इंडिया नेपाल relationship. So in that context, you see there is a large source of employment also. There are huge marital links also between the plains of Nepal and what? Between the plains of Nepal and the northern states of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. They seek employment opportunities also, as well as this is there. Marital links are also there. And there is historically been more or less an open border approach between India and Nepal. So what do you see? What in the 19, so this is another factor. And एक और factor भी है, वो जिसे क्या कहते हैं? धर्म, religion. There's partly the Buddhist connection. They say Lumbini is in Nepal, or there is also the Ayodhya connection, Janakpur, the birthplace of Sita. Even that connect is also there, right? So please understand that whatever any leader says has to be judged in this context. Without this, you can't just say. So there is the landlocked nature that's there. And for economics also, what sir, their transit rights etc. they're dependent on India. Now let's now come broadly one by one to each of the issues. Okay. Now when we come to the issues, one of the first issue from your examination point of view is the friendship treaty, and is there a case for revision? Then let's talk about hydropower, and then let's talk about the constitutional question. Now firstly, what is this friendship treaty? The friendship treaty of 1950, whatever I just told you above, what? Firstly, India and Nepal signed this friendship treaty in 1950. Why? Under this friendship treaty, they said that India and Nepal will be friends with each other. Okay, that's not the big deal. The point was that India and Nepal would be friends with each other and would continue to largely uphold what? An open border approach with each other and extend reciprocal treatment reciprocal or national treatment to each other's citizens. Okay. Next, the friendship treaty also said something important, that the secret letters associated with the friendship treaty said something important. The treaty said, the secret letters associated with the friendship treaty said that Nepal would procure what? Its arms from India, and in case India is unable to meet its requirements, it would do so, it would procure arms from third countries after informing India. After informing India. It would procure arms from third countries after informing India. Here's the point. So basically it would procure arms from India in case India is unable to meet. पहली बात, बड़ी simple सी बात है. What will Nepal do with arms? You give Nepal sir arms. Will Nepal go and defeat China? What will Nepal do with arms? Why does it want arms? It wants arms to protect itself. Can it protect itself with the use of arms from either India or China? It cannot. The use of arms is for a variety of other purposes also. Often the army is the last bastion of resort for whom? The monarchy or any ruler to discipline whom? Its own population. Okay, that's there. Often the army is the last line of resort to strengthen control over your own people, and may not always serve a purpose of what? Of doing what? Of militarily challenging your neighbor. A Bangladesh tomorrow cannot think of challenging India militarily. It's not possible. Yet Bangladesh maintains an army. So if there is a large scale rioting in Bengal tomorrow, in Bangladesh tomorrow, the Bangladesh government will use its army to suppress any kind of revolts, right? So in that context, you see, army is not just used for militarily challenging your neighbors or for a defensive purposes against, though it is supposed to be ideally used only for external security purposes, ideally not used for internal security purposes, but often it is as a last line of resort. So here, why do the Nepalis would want often arms? We'll see historically actually it was often procured to attack its own people. Okay, that's there. So yes, हर state में more or less होता रहता है, ऐसा नहीं है. That's only about Nepal. So this was the secret letters associated with this treaty. Another point about this treaty was what? This treaty was signed between whom? Between the Ranas, who were the Rana Prime Minister, who was the unelected, yet is the Prime Minister of Nepal, and the Indian ambassador to Nepal. Indian ambassador to Nepal. An Indian ambassador to Nepal. So this treaty was signed between these fellows. The Indian ambassador to Nepal and the Rana Joda unelected, but the prime ministers of Nepal in 1950. Now, though this treaty was signed in 1950, since then constantly from time to time, firstly, what has happened is that in 1980s and in 2006, the Nepali ruling class did what? Procured arms from whom? China. As India refused to supply arms, which is very easily what? A violation of the treaty. Okay, which is actually a violation of the treaty also. And Nepal and Nepali political leaders from time to time, Nepali political elites have from time to time said what? That they want to revise the treaty. They want a revision of the treaty. It is worthwhile to note that in case of Bhutan, we also have a friendship treaty with Bhutan that was signed in 1949. With Bhutan also we signed a friendship treaty in 1949, and this treaty was revised in 2007. So India revised its friendship treaty with Bhutan, and we'll talk about that later. But Nepali politicians have also wanted a revision of the treaty from time to time. So what are Nepal's concerns? That you must know. Nepal's first concern, sir, is what? Ki status inequality is there. India doesn't respect its smaller neighbors. That Hamara ambassador is equivalent to their prime minister. That's not fair. So firstly, Nepal's concern is India must show respect towards its neighbors and the 1950 treaty is an unequal treaty. Is an unequal treaty. 1950 treaty is an unequal treaty signed between the Indian ambassador and whom? Yes, the Ranas. Second, they say that today they say there another major problem is they say that we are what? Sovereign and independent countries. Say India talked about in the 1950s also India talked about Panchsheel, right? And what is the idea of Panchsheel? That 5 principles are there. One of the principle is non-interference in the domestic affairs. Okay. So if they want, if you say that Nepal must seek permission from India while buying arms from third countries, sir, why? Nepal says we are a fully independent country. Does India seek permission from us before buying arms from US? No. So why should we seek permission from India? Who told that India is the big brother? Why should we seek permission from India? We should be free to seek arms from anywhere and everywhere if we feel the need to do so. And India should have no such say over these matters of Nepal's foreign policy. So Nepal has often argued that the secret letters associated with the treaty, restrict the secret letters associated with the treaty restrict its ability to procure arms from third countries, and violates its sovereignty. Okay, that's it. Then they also argue that apart from these two things, so these are their two major principal problems associated with the treaty. At the same point of time, you see that India said, okay, that's it. These are the two major problems associated with the treaty. At other times, Nepali politicians have also said, but these statements have been made as Nepali politicians or Nepali political class has consistently stated publicly about their desire to reduce what? Their dependence on India. One of the things they've also said is that even KP Oli has repeatedly said is that they would revoke the arrangement of Nepali soldiers serving where? In the Indian Army. Now, that is there. Now, what has been India's response to these kind of statements? India's response has been that it is open to a review of the treaty if Nepal was to make a formal proposal. Under the treaty, any side at any point of time can give a notice for negotiations on reviewing the treaty. But Nepal is yet to give us a formal notice. And Nepal can do the other thing also, that if it is not happy with the treaty, it can also revoke the treaty. It has to give a 1 year notice and can revoke the treaty also. Sir, Brexit hai jaise. So the treaty can be revoked also. But Nepal was yet to make a formal, India said it is open to review the treaty if Nepal was to make a formal proposal. India said if you have concerns, we also have some concerns. Okay. Firstly, India has told that, that though Nepali citizens receive national treatment, in India, Indian citizens are not granted the same protection where? In Nepal. Indian citizens are not granted the same protection in Nepal in terms of what? On property or settlement rights, etc. That's not true, they argue. Okay, that they have to obtain work permits, they can't buy property, etc. Okay, so is India really concerned that we don't get these kind of privileges in Nepal? No. It is just to tell Nepal, this is partly to tell Nepal that India is offering huge benefits to Nepal, that if you want renegotiation, we are okay for renegotiation. If you have some demands, we also have some demands. Okay, so it's partly putting pressure on Nepal. Secondly, India has said that, so India's position has been that it is open to review and that it also has some unaddressed concerns. India's another concern, India has said that the open border with Nepal comes with its security challenges. Comes with its security challenges. And what are these security challenges? These security challenges can be that there is fake currency that is pushed in through the India-Nepal border, or there is what? Terror groups who may set up their shop across the Indian border on the Nepali side, terror groups operating from Nepal side, or you have human trafficking, narco trafficking, etc. So India said that maintaining this open border with Nepal comes with a huge set of challenges also. Okay, that is there, and they must also be addressed. I am not saying that they must also be addressed. Addressed का मतलब ये नहीं है that India is saying that close the border. That they must also be addressed. So that's it. Now, if they ask you a question, is there a case for revision of the treaty? You must say yes. India has rightly said that it is open for the revision of treaty, and it must show willingness. Okay. It must show. So, what is the way forward on this issue? That India has rightfully demonstrated the willingness to renegotiate the treaty. Because if India says that we are not going to renegotiate the treaty, then this projects India in a negative light, that India is trying to, unduly coerce Nepal into doing something that Nepal doesn't need or want. So, India has rightfully demonstrated the willingness to renegotiate the treaty because firstly, Nepali politicians have often unjustifiably blamed India habitually for their internal domestic disputes and tried to project Nepali nationalism as a need to counter India or counter India's influence. What does this mean? See, Nepali politicians have time and again said that, we are not landlocked, we are India locked. In the sense that we are heavily dependent on India for our own survival. and Indian politicians and Indian state has often tried to use this to its advantage. That because this is why they they have been able to restrict our import of arms. They have been able to do what? They have actually signed the treaty in a manner which is heavily in favor of India. So they often say that the treaty is heavily in favor of India than in favor of Nepal. Whereas on the ground there is no reason to believe that the treaty is heavily favoring India. Rather, the treaty is heavily favoring Nepal in terms of employment opportunities the diaspora finds in India. But Nepali politicians refer to these clauses of the treaty like the secret letter or the fact that the treaty was signed between their prime minister and our ambassador to say that India doesn't treat Nepal as its equal or as its neighbor. Now you may say, why should we treat Nepal as our equal? Right? But often in international relations it is said that relations must be based on the idea of mutual respect and that all sovereign countries are equal. Arey, kal ko if the US Prime Minister, US President says, I don't want to meet Modi, they said ki you come as the special guest for the Independence Day. Mr. Trump says, I don't have time, I can send my ambassador. उससे चला लो, चलता है तो काम. I don't have time. तो फिर इंडिया क्या बोलेगा? This is our disrespect, right? We want to be treated with respect. Everybody wants to be treated with respect. So Nepal's argument are partly political posturing. Every politician in Nepal of whichever political party is there keeps on saying that Nepal needs what? A strong leader. And what will a strong leader in Nepal do? It will counter India's influence in Nepal. It is a strong leader. KP Oli says that we need strong leadership in Nepal so that we can make India respect Nepal. Like today, we have Modi ji, who is a strong leader. The world respects India. In the same manner, Nepal also wants a strong leadership. So domestic politicians in Nepal, their nationalistic idea has often been to portray India as the big brother. And you need a strong leader to protect against a big brother. Okay, that is there. So India said, आपको जो negotiate करना है, कर लो. We are open to all negotiations. Whatever your concerns are there, we are willing to address. And partly, has ma'am talked to you about the Gujarat Doctrine? Right? So, and one of the things also that you can always write in South Asia is the Gujarat Doctrine. That in keeping with the Gujarat Doctrine, India must be willing to accommodate and offer unilateral concessions if required, if and where required, to Nepal if and where required to Nepal, if and where required So that's it. Whatever their concerns are, we should be willing to accommodate, because it's not that because India has no unfair intentions, nor it tries to too much restrict the autonomy of or the independence of Nepal. That's there. Now, this issue is partly, again, we'll keep coming back to it again and again later. But the next thing that I want to talk to you first is about this aspect. And what is that? That is about the hydropower cooperation and then the Madhesi question. Now let me talk to you about the hydropower cooperation angle. See, one of the things about hydropower cooperation between India and Nepal, you must know this from your examination point of view, because there has been some movement also in this direction. देखिए, अभी आपको और डिटेल में you'll understand क्या प्रॉब्लम क्या है नेपाल के साथ. इंडिया नेपाल, देखिए नेपाली नेशनलिज्म, नेपाल is in many ways India's younger brother only, sir. In the sense that their politicians, if Indian politics was to get worse, it will look like Nepali politics. Okay, and Nepal's domestic politics is a huge mess that will become very clear. In the sense, Nepal, when you look at, Nepal has a hydropower potential of, has a hydropower what? Potential. जैसे आप सब में भी है क्या? Potential. Has a hydropower potential of more than 80,000 megawatts of electricity. It can generate more than 80,000 megawatts of electricity. Why? Because in the Ganga river system, almost all the major rivers come through Nepal. Okay. So Nepal has a hydropower potential of more than 80,000 megawatts. Yet Nepal is an acutely power starved country, power deficient country. It is an acutely power deficient country where, to what extent? To the extent of that in summers 12 to 14 hours power outages are very common. And Nepal buys electricity from India. Now, in 1996, now देखिए, firstly, what? So construction of dams is a big area, is a big potential area for what? India, Nepal relationship. Construction of dams is a big potential area for India-Nepal relationship. Now, it's a big area for India-Nepal relationship. Potential, sir, again the word is potential. Many rivers are there, sir. Kosi river is there. Okay. There is the Gandak. There is the Mahakali, Arun, etc. Many rivers are there. And construction of dams has a lot of potential. Why? Because it can generate what? Hydroelectricity, that's one thing. But not just hydroelectricity, sir. Another thing. Irrigation. Flood relief. Right? Now, also with this generation of electricity, what will Nepal do, sir, with 80,000 megawatts of electricity? अरे क्या करेगा नेपाल के बस की नहीं है. It doesn't need that much electricity. If it is able to generate that kind of electricity, it can sell surplus electricity to India, or to India also has a lot of generation now. To Bangladesh. Okay. Our electricity grid is already connected to Nepal. Our electricity grid, India's electricity grid, is already connected to Nepal. We sell electricity to them. India also sells electricity to Bangladesh. So, India, Nepal and Bangladesh electricity grids are already partly interconnected. And Nepal one day can sell surplus electricity to Bangladesh, because Bangladesh also needs a lot of electricity, okay, for its manufacturing sector. So there's a lot of potential, sir. And one of the examples of this is one of the major problems, major challenges because of which this potential has remained what? Unutilized. Underutilized भी नहीं है, unutilized. Has remained unrealized is what? देखिए, first thing, political instability in Nepal. They'll ask you a question like this: discuss the issues and challenges in India-Nepal hydropower cooperation and its potential for India-Nepal relationship. Okay, so why has this potential remained unutilized? Is because of political instability. Where? In Nepal. क्या है? Just to give you an example, that between 1997 to 2017, 25 years, in 25 years, 27 prime ministers have happened in Nepal. Nepal has a huge political instability in the sense that there is always such a fractious nature of politics between monarchy, between Nepali Congress and the Maoists in Nepal, that because of this problem, political instability in Nepal has been a consistent problem. There is often a tendency amongst Nepali politicians to, there is often a tendency amongst Nepali politicians to argue that the hydropower projects benefit India more than नेपाल. देखिए, बड़ी सिंपल सी बात है, ऐसे समझ लीजिए. If you have a number of rivers coming from Nepal, Nepal is the upper riparian, right? It's not the lower riparian, it's the upper riparian. So rivers come from Nepal into India. Now, if a dam is to be constructed on these rivers, then suppose if a dam is to be constructed on this river, it is, what has India said from time to time, that it is willing to offer financial assistance for the construction of these dams, and it is also willing to give an assured power purchase agreement also if needed, that we will buy this electricity or the surplus electricity from you. Now, if suppose a dam is constructed on the river, one of the first thing is that this dam has to be constructed where? It can be constructed in India or Nepal, both the places on the river. But most of these dam constructions have been proposed where? In Nepal, along the Indian-Nepal border areas. Now, when dam is constructed, what do you firstly need? Land acquisition. And construction of dam will lead to displacement, flooding, right? Environmental concerns. So Nepal says that the dam is constructed in Nepal. So the human costs, social costs, environmental costs of flooding or displacement are to be paid largely by whom? The flooding will happen largely where? In Nepal. Displacement will happen largely where? In Nepal. And the electricity that gets generated will be shared between India and Nepal. So India doesn't have to pay the cost, it gets the benefits, right? And Nepal has to pay the cost. So who's paying the cost? Nepal. And the benefits are going to both India and Nepal, but the cost is being paid by Nepal. Okay, that is what they argue. So their argument is कि फायदा तो दोनों को हो रहा है, लेकिन India is gaining more. This is not a equitable treaty, or this is not an equitable program, because why should India benefit more? Shouldn't Nepal benefit more? So that's one thing. Every Nepali politician says, whichever Nepali Prime Minister signs a deal with India, opposition political party says, yeah, to big gaya hai India ko. He has signed this agreement on hydropower cooperation with India. Why? Because he has he has बेच दिया उन्होंने अपनी आत्मा किसे? इंडिया को. He has sold his soul to whom? India. That he has signed such a treaty where displacement happens in Nepal and benefit goes to India. And on top of that, there is political instability. Every time a prime minister there signs a treaty with India, the opposition leader says, "No." They have, the ruling political party has sold their soul to India. One classic example of this is the Pancheshwar Dam project. देखिए ये पंचेश्वर डैम प्रोजेक्ट इंटरिम अग्रीमेंट वो साइंड, इससे समझ में आता है आपको. इंटरिम अग्रीमेंट वो साइंड व्हेन इन 1996 between India and Nepal. This is on the Mahakali, supposed to be on the Mahakali river, and it is a 6,000 megawatts project. But 22 years later, work on the project is yet to begin. Partly because of land acquisition, partly because of land acquisition, environmental issues, but largely because of political instability in Nepal and their compulsive tendency of Nepali political class and opposition parties to sabotage any deal. So that's there. And during the last visit of KP Oli, see, पहले तो इसका भी बड़ा context है. प्रधानमंत्री PM Modi went in 2014, said that the Pancheshwar Dam Authority will be established within a year. Will be established within a year, and work will begin. कुछ नहीं हुआ. Okay. Rather, in 2018, Mr. Oli came. And both sides said that work should begin soon. Then Mr. Modi went. And during these successive visits in 2018, in fact, Prime Minister Modi's visit in 2014 was the first Indian Prime Minister visit after 17 years. The last was in 1997. The reason for this is very different. It's not that every other Prime Minister had forgotten Nepal in the past 17 years and suddenly Mr. Modi discovered Nepal. It was primarily because of the political instability in Nepal. We wanted a stable government to first come in Nepal, and then India should talk to that government openly at the prime ministerial level. It's not that if the prime minister is not talking, nobody else is talking. There is a reason we have a foreign minister, there is a reason we have foreign secretaries, ambassadors, etc. Right? So in 2018, Modi went, and after Mr. Oli's visit, and finally we have announced, not on Pancheshwar, but the other project, the 900 megawatt, which project? Arun 2 hydro power project. So a foundation stone has been laid and work has begun. And work has begun for the 900 megawatt Arun 2 hydropower project. Okay. And this is something going to cost around 1.5 billion US dollars project. The part of the cost will be partly borne by India and partly borne by Nepal. And that's a positive development. But what are the major issues? I told you what are the major issues. Their political instability, their compulsive tendencies, and often, one more point if you want to add here, you can say that Nepali politicians have often argued that the human cost associated with the projects, politicians have also often argued that the human costs associated with the projects, such as displacement, the human costs associated with the projects such as displacements or environmental issues have to be borne by whom? By Nepal, while India unequally benefits from these projects. So then what is India's position, sir? India क्या कह रहा है? What is India's argument or the way forward that we say? India has argued first. Way forward, India has argued that by get out of the negative mindset. India has urged Nepal to get out or give up the negative mindset. In the sense that yes, the project may cause what? Displacement in Nepal. अरे नेपाल अगर डैम बनाना भी है और डिस्प्लेसमेंट भी ना हो तो कैसे होगा? मतलब you cannot make a dam without displacement, right? And to that extent, if they want electricity through hydropower, then they'll have to make dams. If they'll have to make dams, then there will be displacement. अभी उसमें इंडिया क्या करे? How can India help that there? And to that extent, they have to get over this negative mindset of blaming India for all the problems. Give us the negative mindset of blaming India. That's one thing. Second thing, we have also said one thing, that India is providing what? Assistance. India would be partly bearing what? The cost. Provide technical assistance. देखिए, Nepal doesn't have the capacity to build these dams. It doesn't have the technical competence or large companies, Nepali companies, which can build these dams. So India has often consistently said that it will provide technical assistance. ये तो कहने का तरीका है, meaning that contracts will go to whom? Indian companies to build these dams. So it's beneficial to India also. Okay, so India will provide technical assistance for dam construction, and also will provide connectivity to sell electricity to India and other to India and other countries in South Asia, which will earn them foreign reserves, which can be a valuable source of foreign reserves. That's there. So all of these are the reasons. What is India's position? Lastly, to say, though Nepal is largely responsible for a number of delays, there is, needless to say, a reason also from India's side, and that is what we are good at: poor implementation of sanctioned infrastructure projects. So one of the things also has been that we have been relatively poor in implementing projects which have even been sanctioned or cleared. It has taken a long duration of time, firstly, to get clearances. Even when cleared, the implementation has been relatively slow. And part of this is because of the poor capacity of Indian infrastructure companies in constructing any big project, which is a general systemic problem everywhere in South Asia, for India or elsewhere also. Okay, that is there. Now, is this much clear? Right. So anything that you firstly want to ask on this, that so you've got to understand that this is supposed to benefit Nepal in significant ways if only they get their act together. And why do we say so? That when you look at Bhutan, Bhutan is already selling a huge amount of electricity to India. In fact, 60% of Bhutan's exports is only hydroelectricity that they sell to. 90% of Bhutan's total exports are to India. Out of those 90%, 60% is only hydroelectricity export. If Bhutan can export electricity to India, Nepal has much bigger hydropower potential. And Bhutan is already a surplus country, power surplus country. Okay, so Bhutan meets its requirements and sends the surplus electricity to India. If Bhutan can do so, why can't Nepal? And part of that is, and why could Bhutan partly do so, is also because of political stability in Bhutan and a domestic consensus in Bhutan that pursuing closer relations with India is in Bhutan's interest. Okay, that's there. So that's another factor. Is this much clear? Okay. Now, any doubts, anything you want to ask? The next is about the constitutional question. ये थोड़ा सा परेशानी वाला है इनका matter. Sir, Bhutan in South Asia in general, Sri Lanka has changed its constitution 4 times. Pakistan constitution doesn't matter only. Okay. Nepal took 8 years last time to draft a constitution. 2007 they began 8 and 2015 they completed their constitution drafting process. Political instability in South Asia and India's neighbors makes it very difficult for India to deal with its neighbors, because as long as there is political instability, it is always a challenge, because you don't know whom you need to negotiate with, or whatever deal you reach, whether that deal will last or not. Okay. So in that context, that's there. Now when we talk about Nepal's constitutional crisis, देखिए इसका significance कहाँ से आता है? What you need to know from your examination point of view, the constitutional crisis. देखिए 2007 to 2015 Nepal took 8 years to draft a fresh constitution. Okay. What kind of a constitution did they decide on? They decided on a federal constitution. They decided on a federal constitution and the creation of 7 provinces in a north-south fashion. In a north-south fashion. Actually, in Nepal, there are broadly 2 groups, the Bahun Kshetris. Abhi I'll come to it. Bahun Kshetris, which constitute 29% of the population in Nepal and live in the hills of Nepal or in the hill regions of Nepal. And there are also the Tharus, the Madhesis and the Janjatis, which live in the plains of Nepal. Out of them, the Madhesi population, is roughly equivalent to 36% of Nepal's population. Is equivalent to 36% of Nepal's population, and they have close cultural and marital links with India. Have close cultural or marital links with India. Close cultural and Janjatis. Janjatis are what? Are the Adivasi population. Okay. And the Tharus is another ethnic group. Now, the Madhesis wanted what? The Madhesi population wanted adequate political representation, in the parliament and they also wanted what? The creation of a strong Madhesi state in the plains, in creation of a strong single unified Madhesi state in plains in an east-west fashion. What are we writing? Very simple, sir. You can understand this. You can understand this, that in Nepal, they decided to create a federal constitution and decided to create 7 provinces. They created the 7 provinces like this. They created these 7 provinces like this in a north-south fashion. However, and the Madhesi population lives largely in the plains region. they live largely not in the mountain region but in the plains region. And the Madhesis wanted the creation of a state not in a north-south manner but in a east-west manner. Out of the 7 states, only the 7th state is created in a east-west fashion. But it doesn't cover all the Madhesi population. It only covers a small section of Madhesi population. The result is that only out of 7 provinces, there is only 1 province which has the majority of population as a Madhesi population, and yet Madhesi population is distributed in every province, and in all these provinces the net effective majority will not be with the Madhesis. Now why am I telling you this? It is essentially because of a reason. And what is this reason? The reason is that these Bahun Kshetris who live in the hills, they are the whom? They are the dominant elites. They are the dominant elites. Dominant elites in the sense that all political parties in Nepal, all major political leaders in Nepal, whether that of the Nepali Congress or that of the Communist Party of Nepal, okay, the Communist Party of Nepal, the Unified Marxist-Leninist, or the Communist Party of Nepal Maoist factions, or the Nepali army chiefs, or the royalty, ex-royalty, basically all of them come from the Bahun Kshetri groups. And the Bahuns are whom? The Brahmins. The Kshetris are whom? The Kshatriyas. Whereas the Madhesi or the Janjati population, its position is very inferior. Its position is very inferior in Nepal to the extent that no major political leader comes from this group, and also you see that Madhesis have had it tough in the sense that many were historically not even recognized what? As Nepali citizens. In the sense that they said, ye Madhesi kaun hai? These all Madhesis are Indians from where? UP and Bihar, who have come and settled in Nepal. They are not Nepali citizens. Kaun hai ye? Indians hai. They are not Nepali citizens. So can they be loyal to Nepal? No. They are Indian citizens who have masquerading as Nepalis. Ghuspaitiye hain. They are not Nepali citizens. Okay. So they've been politically very marginalized in Nepal, and it is only in 2007 that roughly 3 million of these individuals were granted citizenship in Nepal. So they are completely marginalized or politically marginalized. So their demand is what? That they want a strong unified state. Politically and economically they are marginalized. They wanted a strong unified Madhesi state in the plains in an east-west fashion. However, when the states were carved, they were carved in a north-south fashion. Now, what is happening is that in 2015 when the constitution is drafted, I told you it's a federal constitution in a north-south fashion, and what is happening in 2015 is that in the parliament there are two houses, upper house and lower house. In the upper house, the constitution granted them what? All 7 provinces were to get equal seats. All 7 provinces were to get equal seats. Okay. Whereas in the lower house, what is going to be there? That there were a total of 165 seats, but 100 seats of the 165 seats would be in the hill areas and only 65 seats in the plains. Whereas the demand of the Madhesis on this was, the Madhesi demand was what? That they wanted that provinces must get seats on proportional representation. मतलब जैसे यूपी in India, upper house में seats are on which basis? Proportional or equal? Proportional, right? So they said that seats must be in the upper house on the basis of proportion of population of each province, because this would give Madhesis what? More seats, or the Madhesi state, largely the state number 7, more seats in the upper house. Secondly, they said that they wanted equal number of seats or more seats where? In the lower house. Okay, that's their problem, that the constitution being drafted is one which is politically marginalizing whom? The Madhesis. Already they are weak, and the drafted constitution gives more representation to what? Bahun Kshetris, because more seats are in the hill areas, and the 6 provinces where the Bahun Kshetris are likely to dominate the politics, they will also maintain domination where? In the upper house. That's it. Another provision of the constitution that becomes problematic between the two groups is that all all constitutional positions will be open or will not be open to naturalized citizens. Will not be open to naturalized citizens. Meaning what? That one is citizenship by descent, that your father is Indian, your parents are Indian, and now you are born in India. Your parents were Indians, and so you are also Indian. Indians by descent. Other is what? Like John Dries, Belgian. आप 10-15 साल इंडिया में रह लिया, आप बोले यही अच्छा है, यही रहेंगे. Okay. So that is citizenship by what? Naturalization. You apply for citizenship and you get citizenship. That is naturalization. So who is getting citizenship by naturalization? Madhesis. Why? In 2007, a number of Madhesis are being granted citizenship. They are granted citizenship by naturalization, not by descent. So all constitutional position मतलब क्या? Prime Minister, President, Chief Justice, all these positions will not be open to whom? Madhesis. Indirectly that is what they are saying. That अरे तो जो उनके constitution में if they are saying that president has a constitutional status, they are saying even partly not so much about prime minister but chief justice etc. Even to the army chiefs they are given some constitutional status. So they are saying that things like the president, even partly prime minister but predominantly president, chief justice, army chiefs etc. they are not open to whom? Citizens by descent, citizens by naturalization. And the Madhesis have a strong objection to this argument. So Madhesis have a problem with this as well. You would be like, sir, हमारे जीवन में problem कम है क्या? Right. Why are we reading about their constitution and their problem? Because this has implication for India. So Madhesis were opposed to these provisions as well of offices not being open to the naturalized citizens. Now, in India, is it open to naturalized citizens? Yes, no? There is reason to believe that it is open. At least on the Prime Minister thing, so it is very clear that it is open. Sonia Gandhi could have become the PM. There is no constitutional bar as of now. Now, that's there. Now, all of this is the underlying situation, and you see that it is in this context. What is the way? Now, what happened as a consequence of this? When this constitution was put in place, you see the Madhesi blockade happens. Yes. When this constitution was put in place, the Madhesi said, "Arey, this is not fair. This is unfair. This is unfair." And so, this is unfair. So, what happened was the Madhesi blockade. So, in 2015, they adopted this constitution, and the result was that the Madhesis came out in open protest. In 2015, a blockade was imposed by the Madhesi population large scale violence erupted in the Terai regions. Terai region is the plain region, and fuel supply and essential goods supply to whom? To Nepal stopped from India. What was Nepali politicians' response? Nepali politicians said that India is enforcing this blockade. India, firstly, when when this constitution was adopted, Indian the Indian foreign ministry issued a statement that India observes the formulation of the new constitution. India observes the formulation of the new constitution. India did not congratulate Nepal because of whose concern? Madhesi concerns. So, firstly, India actually sent the foreign secretary to Nepal as soon as they got in their new constitution, urging them to consider bringing in amendments to address whose issues? Madhesis. So, what does Nepal say to India? Aap kaun? This is our domestic matter. We will handle it the way we want to handle. Okay. And soon after this, violence erupted, riots erupted, and there is a blockade in Nepal. So, Nepali politicians blamed India for enforcing blockade on Nepal and pushing on the Madhesi question. India said that we are not enforcing any blockade. India's argument was that we are not enforcing any blockade. There is what? There is political instability and there is violence in the Terai region, because of which no transporter is willing to take fuel. Roughly around 300 trucks carry fuel to Nepal every day from India through the Terai region. Now, because of violence in the Terai region, no fuel transporter is willing to put his logistical, fleet of tankers at risk, etc., because there can be violence, etc. So, no private supplier is willing to take the supplies to Nepal. What can India do? So, India's argument was that the deterioration of domestic stability of domestic conditions in Nepal and political violence has created unsafe conditions and Nepal must resolve its constitutional crisis. And Nepal must resolve its constitutional crisis and accommodate Madhesi concerns. Nepali Prime Minister at this point of time was KP Oli. And this blockade lasted for a good more than 2.5 to 3 months, and because of this the oil prices in Nepal skyrocketed, LPG prices in Nepal skyrocketed. There were huge shortages of fuel supplies, of LPG supplies in Nepal. Nepal said, we are not landlocked, we are India locked. That India is trying to unnecessarily interfere in our domestic politics and trying to browbeat Nepal. What is the solution? They said, "Kaun hai hamara dost?" China. So KP Oli looked towards, and here I am telling you about the China factor also. Herein comes the China factor. KP Oli looked towards towards China, and urged China to grant an alternative transit route and a trade and transit agreement was finalized in 2016, where 7 ports would be opened by China for Nepal as an alternative trade route. KP Oli said that Nepal is India locked. Then देखिए, here is the point. So Nepali politicians said, India kept saying, no, we are not enforcing blockade. Nepali politicians said, no, no, India is enforcing blockade. Okay. The question then was, what? What was India? Okay, chaliye मान लिया India was not enforcing the blockade. But what was India doing to overcome the blockade? Was India airlifting supplies into Nepal? No. India, okay, land route से नहीं जा सकता तो airlift कर दीजिए. So India was not airlifting any supplies into Nepal. Why? Because this would be partly seen as antagonizing whom? The Madhesi population. So India did not want to antagonize the Madhesi population also. So India did not, airlift, but China airlifted essential what? Supplies, including oil and gas supplies. To whom? Nepal during this period. That's there. Also, Nepali politicians have constantly, not just now, have repeatedly played the China card to balance out India since the 1970s. And have repeatedly argued for first entry of China into SARC since 2000s. They've said that China must be given an entry into SARC. China has also expressed willingness and Nepal has supported China's entry into SARC. Has demonstrated willingness to join what? Has demonstrated willingness to join the Belt and Road Initiative by China. Recently conducted what? A joint military exercise with China, while it refused to take part in the BIMSTEC joint naval exercise. So this has caused a certain amount of concern in India. But, क्या बताया था? One factor alone. अरे बोलने से नहीं होता है बस. अरे geography favors India. People to people contacts favor India. And however much they may play the China card, all other factors are always in India's favor. They may try to use China to balance out India, but they can never afford to ignore India. Now, what should be India's response and what has India been doing in the recent past? What's the way forward in recent advances? What India has been doing? Very simple, sir. देखिए, what is India's position and what is the way forward and recent advances for what India needs to do? What do you think? First, by geography and people and strong people to people contact are a huge source of what? Strength for India-Nepal relationship. Secondly, there must be a speedy implementation of what? Of HIT. क्या ये HIT? Agenda as highlighted by PM Modi ji during the 2014 visit. देखिए HIT क्या है? हाईवे. I is information ways and T is transmission ways. सब highways, information ways, transmission ways. मतलब क्या सर? पहला तो improve border infrastructure. इसमें फॉर एग्जाम्पल रेल लिंक सर, रेल लिंक. कौन सा रेल लिंक? रेल लिंक फ्रॉम रक्सौल टू काठमांडू must be speedily built. Why, sir? Why? China is already constructing the Karakoram. The China's Trans-Himalayan Railways project. China's Trans-Himalayan Railway project already in Tibet connects from Lhasa, Tibet's capital, to Shigaste. देखिए, and I think I have that open here. Just a second. I'm seeing if ये देखिए. Just for your understanding, I'm telling. Showing the map. कोई नहीं बोलेगा बनाने को. Answer में नहीं बनाना map. IR answer, no need to draw any map, sir. ठीक है. If you look from Chigaste, they have already constructed thing till Girong. They've already constructed a rail line, and from Girong to Kathmandu, it is merely 100 kilometers. Girong is a part of Tibet, so they've constructed rail line till here. They just need to extend 100 kilometers to Kathmandu, and they will be able to do it swiftly. हमने क्या है? हमारी वो they are constructing through Himalaya, sir. हमारी तरफ से plains है, फिर भी नहीं बनाया हमने अभी तक. Okay, they are speedily in a position to complete this construction very swiftly from Girong to Kathmandu, which is merely 100 kilometers, and they can do it, but they are not doing it. Why? Because as of now, this is not economically very viable. In the sense, and that is where KP only is 2+1. formula comes into the picture. That if Nepal could become the connectivity link between whom? Between China and India. Matlab that railways that comes to Kathmandu must also come to India. Okay, that is when it will become economically viable. That's the one argument. So that, and KP Oli said that Nepal can become the connectivity link between India and China. Why should it be, it then become the bridge between India and China? Why should it always have to worry about India and China? Why can't it become the bridge between India and China? Okay, that is what their KP Oli has said. Nepal has also showed some enthusiasm, China has also shown some enthusiasm, but India has been a bit more skeptical about having a predominant Chinese presence in its own backyard coming. India has not taken part in the BRI, etc. So India is not really keen on this project as of now. So this is just to tell you that from Shigaste, they've already extended to Nepal border. India must speedily construct the rail line from Raxaul to Kathmandu. भाई रेल लिंक तक तो ठीक है, बाकी road infrastructure also needs to be improved. क्या? Which road infra, sir? लुम्बिनी टू बोध गया. क्या बनाना है हमने? टूरिस्ट सर्किट टू सारनाथ, बुद्धिस्ट सर्किट, राइट? और द जनकपुर अयोध्या सर्किट. तो टूरिस्ट कैन गो, you can improve the connectivity link. That's something that is also that we should be able to do quickly, and we should do quickly. Quickly complete, sir, what? Hydropower projects. As this is likely to strengthen the bilateral relationship. So that is where the Arun project has moved, and that is a good thing. That is where the Arun 2 project has moved, and that's a positive development. So that's also something which is there. This is something that we need to do. Apart from this, sir, एक और है, ये दो common चीजें हैं for India, Nepal and India, Bhutan also, and that is what? The SAARC electricity grid. And if not SAARC electricity grid, at least BBIN, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal electricity grid and motor vehicle agreement. Need to be operationalized. So that what happens? So that a free movement of goods and people can flourish. A free movement of goods and people can flourish, and this should be beneficial to all partners. Okay, that's the idea. Last point, sir, here, the last major point is about what? KP Oli proposed the 2+1 formula to argue that Nepal can serve as a bridge between India and Nepal can serve as a bridge between India and China. Nepal can serve as a bridge between India and China, and just a sec. I'll give just a sec. Can serve as a bridge between India and China, and joint infrastructure and development projects must be explored by both China and India in Nepal. Yes. No, what's the need from whose perspective are you asking? What is the need? So India has not said a no, India has not said a yes. For China, it becomes much more faster to move goods to India. Abhi, you have to, if you can have a railway line construction, then it roughly takes, for example, for Nepal also, and it will roughly take some 25-30 days to move goods from China to, at least some 15-20 days to move goods from China to India. If they have it through a land route connectivity, it will take roughly around merely 10 days, even less than 10 days. So cost wise, it's more cheaper if there is a direct rail link that can connect. And more importantly, for China, it makes a lot of sense. For India, we already have an imbalance of trade with China. So we have no compelling reasons to be, feeling very enthusiastic about the project. India has not said no to the 2+1 idea. What we have said that India and China can have this 2+1 thing going. Where? In Afghanistan. So India and China are saying that we should cooperate with each other more in Afghanistan. But India is not so enthusiastic about the 2+1 idea. Okay. But but KPOL has argued that, and this option can be considered. We are not saying that there is a need, but India has been not very enthusiastic. So that's also one thing. But India has concerns with respect to the Belt and BRI initiative and has been lukewarm in response. That's it. Okay. Now, what kind of a question they'll ask you? They'll ask you a question like this only. Discuss the key issues for the India-Nepal relationship in the light of increasing Chinese presence in South Asia. That is the kind of specific question they'll ask you. Or discuss the key issues and challenges in India-Nepal hydropower cooperation in the light of increasing Chinese presence, or discuss the key issues for India-Nepal hydropower cooperation and its implication for India-Nepal relationship. Specific to the point question they'll ask. How will you write the answer? 3 broad things. Your answer should first, if there is some historical context, you can write 2 lines about, suppose they ask you a question, India-Nepal hydropower cooperation. You can write firstly 2 or 3 lines about the history of India-Nepal relationship. Then you come, the next 10-12 lines you write on what are the issues in hydropower, challenges and cooperation. Where is the potential and what are the issues. And lastly you write way forward. So in IR questions, simple idea is there, brief historical background, 2-3 lines. That is the introduction ek tarike ka. Okay. Then you come to the major issue. And you can also always write in a point-wise format also, that's not a problem. But write to the point. Okay. and then what is the way forward, or what have been the recent advances in that area. That's it. और कुछ नहीं करना है आपको. Okay, you don't need to do something more fancy or propose something newer. Okay, what has happened in India-Nepal relationship? Issues in hydropower cooperation. What are the recent advances, and the Chinese, and the thing that Pancheshwar Dam must be speedily taken forward, or the Arun 2 project must be completed, and India needs to improve implementation, and the domestic politics in Nepal needs to show more maturity, because the relationship is a mutually beneficial one, and Nepal has all these benefits to gain if they complete the project. They can sell electricity to India, they can meet their own power requirements, and they can sell it broader in South Asia with the SAARC electricity grid idea also in the future. And you can add one more line, that just like Bhutan has exploited its hydropower potential to its advantage, why can't Nepal? That's there. Okay, that's all. Any doubts? Any other doubts still here? Anything you want to ask? Complete India, Nepal. Tomorrow, भूटान. कल तो भूटान तो कर ही देंगे और मालदीव्स को भी कर देंगे. Okay. भूटान पे ज्यादा समय नहीं है. Okay.